Hey there! Today we're going to be talking about a pen from a brand that makes people go nuts. And that is, of course, TWSBI. This pen was launched a couple of months ago. I didn't get one straight away, but I got a lot of review requests. So I contacted TWSBI and I said, could you send me one? And apparently I'm so uninteresting that I wasn't even dignified with a response. But that's okay. I went to La Couronne du Comte. Good news for people in Europe. There is now another retailer that does TWSBI. We had Writing Desk in the UK. They sell TWSBI. I think Cult Pen sells at least some of their stuff, but I think they mainly focus on their mechanical pencils. I think, from the top of my head. La Couronne du Comte now sells TWSBI, so that's very cool. You can get your pens there if you don't want to order them all the way from either the US or Taiwan, or etc. Okay. I'm going to cover the parts of the pen, tell what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then I'll do a writing sample. First, let's have a look at the box. Yes, it's a new box. It's no longer that sort of rounded off, very clear plastic box. This is a sort of clouded plastic, which actually is pretty nice. I'm thinking of ripping out the little cushion in there and just using it to store pens or something in there. As I just showed you, it's a little hard to do. I have to get the lighting exactly right, but the TWSBI logo is on the box in relief. You open it up, and then out come two little slips of paper. One gives you filling instructions. That's very useful if you've never used a piston filler. And then there are some disassembly instructions, and then there's a separate slip of paper with even more disassembly instructions, which are pretty much also here. So I'm not entirely sure why you need that twice, but apparently there's a reason for that my simple brain does not understand. Here we have a little bottle which comes with a little bit of silicone grease, which you can use to lubricate your pen. You're not allowed to swallow. Well, that's to each his own, I suppose. And then we have the little TWSBI wrench. Very useful. It's very cool that you get this to disassemble your pen. Yes, that is a reflection of my webcam. The letters are not actually blue. That's just protective plastic that I left on there because I thought it would give a nice highlight. Alright, and then of course you have the pen. Very important. They come in a bunch of finishes. I know there's also a blue one, but I picked the black. Just simple. I thought the pen is called Classic, and when I think of a classic pen, I think of black. Let's cover the parts of the pen. If we look at the top of the pen, the finial there on the cap, then you see that nice TWSBI logo. Then we have a clip, and the clip, I have to say, is quite nice. I'll show you that in a second. Here we have the center band with nice little grooves on there, quite futuristic. Then we have the barrel that tapers down to the piston turning knob, which looks fairly natural to me. It's a pretty nice design. It almost looks a bit like a ballpoint, a clicker button, but it's not. It's just a chrome piston turning knob. As to the clip, nice and springy, tight but not too tight, just the way I like it. That's easy to use, put in a coat pocket, etc. The clip shouldn't be too tight. As to the shape of the pen, it reminds me of Visconti pens. We've seen that a bunch of time on Visconti pens, where they take a square barrel and they sort of shave off the corners. You see it in this Opera Elements, you see it in this Wall Street. And TWSBI now does the same. They take these pretty much a square, and then they shave off the corners, and then you get an interesting sort of rounded off design, which is very comfortable to hold. Okay, the pen opens by unscrewing the cap, and there's a couple of interesting features. First of all, there is a nib. Number 5 would be my estimation there. It has the TWSBI logo on there. It says 1.1 because I got the 1.1 millimeter italic. I believe it's extra fine, medium, broad, 1.1 and 1.5 millimeter nibs that you can choose from. I'd never sampled TWSBI's 1.1, so I thought I'd go for that. Then you have the section. It's a pretty simple section design, and then a little chrome ring at the end. Then you have the feed. And then you have this ink window, which is actually quite nice. As you can see there, you can see how much ink is left in the pen, which is very cool in a piston filler, because if it's not a demonstrator, And without an ink window, you don't really have an idea of how much ink you have left. So I think that's very cool. I think those are the parts of the pen. Let's talk a bit about what I like about it and what I don't like about it. It's a $50 pen, and I think, as with many of the TWSBI pens, you get a very decent pen for that amount of money. There have been a lot of cracking issues with the earlier TWSBI pens, but this one really feels a bit more robust, which is very cool. Now also, you don't really see a lot of the parts that cracked on the earlier models like the 530, 540, 580, because this is not all clear plastic. But I like it. I like what they have done. So in all, I think you get a very decent pen. I like that. The nib performed very well. Good flow, nice, not too wet, not too dry, pretty well tuned. So that's what I like about it. I like the ink window a lot. It's very clear, and I'll show you that again. As you can see, especially if you have a translucent ink in there, as I do now, it looks very cool. I really like the looks of that, so that's very nice. I like the section, the way it was designed. It's comfortable, and there is a step down from the barrel with threads, but they are not particularly sharp. That is well done too. So even when you hold your pen a little bit higher, as I do, it's a fairly long section, so you're not really uncomfortably touching those threads, which I think is a very nice thing. Those are things I like about it. What do I not like about it? Well, for me personally, the size is okay, but it's a bit small. The section is quite thin, and I would very much like to post this pen, and that is not possible. It doesn't really matter how you do it. You cannot make the cap stick to the barrel in any way. They made it in such a way that it just won't stay on there. Of course, you can just put it on there and then write all the same, but don't know if you can hear that, but it's very wobbly, and it will just fall off at the slightest movement. So that for me is a bit of a letdown. If this pen would post, especially if it would post a bit deeply, something like this, I think you would have a beautiful pen size to write with posted. Okay, so that's that. Other things I don't like about it: $50, piston filler that writes. I would say it's not a bad deal. Clear ink window, and something that I really appreciate, especially in a piston filler, which can take a lot of time to clean between inkings. You can disassemble it, flush all the parts in a sink, and everything's clean. Put it back together. First time, it's a little bit of fiddling, but if you've done it 2 or 3 times, it's very easy and super nice. So in that regard, I think TWSBI has done it again. Would I buy this pen again for $50? Yeah, I think I would, especially with a nice nib, 1.1, 1.5 stub, or actually italics. They give nice writing performance, nice bit of line variation. Pretty cool pen. I think what we need to do next is take a couple of measurements, then I'll do a writing sample, and that's it. Okay, so the pen is 137 millimeters capped. Uncapped, I have 127 millimeters. Section diameter at the narrowest point I get about 9.5 millimeters, and at the widest point 10. As to weight, inked up, I get about 30 grams, which is a decent weight. So there you have it. I think we need to see this pen in action. That's what we're going to do next. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye. Okay, let's have a look at what the TWSBI Classic is all about. we have 1.1 millimeter italic. I think they're often sold as stubs, but they're not, because there is no tipping. And the ink is Sailor Gentle with a J, apricot. Okay, let's do a bit of writing. So the first thing I notice when I write is that it's very nice, very smooth. It is I would say almost a cursive italic, well, not almost, it is a cursive italic, which means that the corners of the nib are rounded off slightly, and the benefit to that, this was not a skip, this was me misaligning the nib. The benefit of rounding off the corners is that it won't dig into the paper, which can happen with a true crisp italic. The crisp italic will give even more line variation, but may dig into the paper. Okay, let's do a bit of fast writing. Notice how I was talking for a bit and the pen started up straight away. Okay, with this very fast writing you may see a little bit of skipping, but even so I think it performs very well, and maybe that again was just a little bit of misalignment of the nib. In all, I'm pretty impressed. Okay, let's look at wetness. Well, the pen doesn't exactly disappoint there. It's pretty wet. This ink dries fairly quickly in my pen, but you saw there was a bit of a drop there, and it's definitely it lays down a nice line of ink, but it is not. I would not call this a gusher, especially under little pressure. It seems to be fairly dry, whereas under more pressure the ink really gushes out. So it depends a bit on how heavy your hand is. Okay, line variation, well, because this is an italic nib, you automatically get this line variation. This is all the same amount of pressure. You will get very thin diagonal lines from left to right, and then, well, I can't really say left to right. So this direction, whereas you get much broader lines in that direction. When you squeeze down on the pen, you will definitely be able to get some more line variation. Finally, a bit of reverse writing. Not very good with this pen. You can't really turn this nib around. Maybe you can with the rounded nibs that have some tipping on there, but with this italic you can't. So there you have it. The TWSBI Classic. Nice pen, nice ink. I hope this was useful, and I will see you later. Bye bye.